The glass bottle my father buried under our oak tree in 1978 held more than just a property map. It held the truth that would expose my wife's conspiracy. She thought her truck driver husband would never notice the fence posts move 20 feet in the night. She thought wrong, because while she was planning to steal land worth thousands, I was protecting an empire worth billions that she never knew existed. Before we begin, let me know where you're tuning in from down in the comments. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next tale. Chapter 1. The rooster's crow cut through the Iowa morning like it had every day for the past 15 years, but I never got tired of it. That old bird was more reliable than any alarm clock, and his raspy announcement meant another day had found its way to our little corner of Cedar Rapids. I rolled out of bed, careful not to wake Amelia, though Lord knows she could sleep through a tornado. The floorboards groaned under my work boots, the same protest they'd been making since my daddy walked these halls. Standing at our bedroom window, I watched the sun paint the cornfields gold, row after endless row stretching toward the horizon like nature's own cathedral. This was my church, my sanctuary. Every morning started the same way. Me, the fields, and a cup of coffee strong enough to wake the dead. Some men had their golf courses or fishing holes. I had 40 acres of the richest soil in Iowa and a family that made every sunrise worth witnessing. Daddy? Victoria's voice drifted from the hallway, soft as morning mist. My younger daughter, 12 years old and already showing signs of becoming the beauty her mother was. You making pancakes? Would I let my girls start a Saturday without pancakes? I called back, already heading toward the kitchen. Wake your sister. Tell her if she's not down in 10 minutes, you get her bacon. The threat of lost bacon got Layla moving. 14 and stubborn as a mule, that one. She thundered down the stairs like she was being chased, her dark hair still wild from sleep. Don't you dare touch my bacon, Tori. This was my life. This was everything I'd ever wanted. Amelia floated into the kitchen 20 minutes later, looking like something out of a magazine even in her faded robe and messy bun. After 15 years of marriage, she still made my heart skip when she smiled that particular way, the one that said she knew exactly what she was doing to me. Morning, handsome, she purred, wrapping her arms around me from behind while I flipped pancakes. You spoil us, you know that? Just taking care of my girls, I said, turning to kiss her forehead. She smelled like vanilla and something floral, same as always. Besides, I've got a long haul today. Won't be back until late. Her face did that little thing, a flash of something I couldn't quite read before it smoothed back into a smile. Another Saturday run? Elijah, you work too hard. Corn doesn't drive itself to market, I said, serving up a stack to Victoria. Besides, overtime pays for those dance lessons you've been wanting to sign Tori up for. That was the lie I lived every single day. The truth was, I could buy the whole damn dance studio if I wanted to. Hell, I could buy 10 of them. But Amelia didn't know that. Nobody did. See, I inherited something from my father that I never told anyone about, not even my wife. Midwest Grain Logistics wasn't just some company I drove trucks for. I owned it, all of it. Every truck, every warehouse, every contract that moved corn and soybeans across 3 states. $1.9 billion in assets, according to my accountant's last report. But as far as everyone in Cedar Rapids knew, I was just Elijah Thompson, truck driver, making an honest living hauling grain. Daddy taught me young that money changes people. You want to know who someone really is? He'd said that last summer before the cancer took him. Don't show them your wallet, show them your character. Money makes folks see dollar signs instead of human beings. So I kept driving trucks, kept wearing the same worn Carhartt jacket, kept shopping at the same grocery store and mowing my own lawn. It was my test, I guess. A way to know that Amelia loved me for me, not for what I could buy her. And for 15 years, I thought I'd found my answer in every kiss, every laugh, every time she looked at me like I hung the moon. Caleb's coming by later, Amelia mentioned, casual as you please while she poured orange juice. Says he wants to look at that loose fence post in the back 40. Caleb Anderson, our neighbor, friend, and the most helpful son of a gun you'd ever meet. Construction contractor with hands that could fix anything, and a smile that probably charmed half the women in town. But not my Amelia. No, sir. That's mighty neighborly of him, I said, meaning it. Tell him I said thanks. Maybe I can return the favor next weekend, help him with that barn roof he's been talking about. You two and your projects. Amelia laughed, but something in it sounded forced, like she was playing a part in a play. I swear, you'd build a whole new town if I let you loose with hammers and nails. After breakfast, I helped the girls with their horses. We had 2 Buttercup for Victoria and Storm for Layla. Teaching them to ride was one of those father-daughter things I'd dreamed about since they were babies. There's something about watching your children master something difficult, seeing their confidence grow with each lesson that fills a man's chest with pride thick as molasses. "Dad, watch this!" Layla called out, urging Storm into a smooth canter around the paddock. The late morning sun caught her hair, turning it the same shade of auburn as her mother's. She sat that horse like she was born to it, back straight, hands steady. "That's my girl!" I hollered back, my voice carrying across the field. "You're getting better every day!" Victoria, not to be outdone, tried to copy her sister's move. She wobbled a bit, still finding her balance, but she kept at it. That was my Tory, stubborn in the best way possible. "Easy does it, sweetheart," I coached, jogging alongside the fence. "Don't fight the horse, move with her." These moments, God, these were the moments that made everything else fade away. The long hours on the road, the weight of running a business nobody knew I owned, the careful dance of maintaining my secret, it all seemed worth it when I watched my daughters grow into strong, capable young women. "Elijah!" Amelia's voice carried from the house. "You're going to be late." I checked my watch and cursed under my breath. She was right. The Peterbilt was already loaded and waiting at the depot, and I had a schedule to keep. Being the owner didn't mean I could slack off. If anything, it meant I had to work harder, be better, set the example. I kissed both girls goodbye, their complaints about my stubbled cheeks making me laugh. "Be good for your mother. I'll be back before you know it." Amelia walked me to my pickup, her hand finding mine like it always did. For a moment, standing there in our driveway with the sun warming our faces and the corn whispering secrets in the breeze, everything felt perfect, like one of those paintings you see in doctors' offices, American Gothic, but happier. "Drive safe," she said, rising up on her toes to kiss me proper. "We'll wait dinner for you." "Don't wait too late," I said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "You know how these runs can go." She nodded, that flash of something crossing her face again. "I know. You and your dedication. It's one of the things I love about you." Driving away, I watched her in the rearview mirror until the house disappeared behind a hill. Something was nagging at me, like a splinter you can't quite find but know is there. Amelia had been different lately. Little things. Coming home late from showings with explanations that didn't quite add up. Phone calls she'd taken the other room. That new diamond necklace she'd worn to church last Sunday. A grateful client, she'd explained when I'd asked about it. Closed on their dream home. It was possible. Hell, it was probable. Amelia was good at her job, one of the top real estate agents in the county. Her face smiled down from bus stop benches and grocery store bulletin boards. "Let Amelia Thompson find your dream home." But still, that splinter kept digging. The truth was, I'd been feeling it for months now. Little fractures in the foundation of what we'd built. Like when she and Caleb had exchanged that look at Ryan's barbecue last month. My brother had been going on about property surveys, boring stuff, really, but something about it made Amelia and Caleb share this quick glance. Not sexual or anything like that. More like conspiratorial, like kids who'd been caught with their hands in the cookie jar. I'd told myself I was being paranoid. 40-hour weeks and raising 2 teenagers could make any man see shadows where there was only light. But that splinter kept working its way deeper. The depot was buzzing when I arrived. Trucks coming and going like worker bees serving their queen. I nodded to the other drivers, kept up the charade. "Thompson!" Big Mike called out, all 300 pounds of him squeezed into coveralls that had given up trying. "Heard you pulled another Saturday shift. Man, you're making the rest of us look bad." "Just trying to keep the lights on," I said, climbing up into the cab of my assigned rig. The Peterbilt purred to life, 18 wheels ready to eat up Iowa highway. The truth was, I could have been sitting in an office somewhere, watching numbers on spreadsheets instead of miles on asphalt. Could have had a secretary and a suit and one of those coffee machines that makes fancy drinks. But this, the growl of the engine, the weight of responsibility, the honest work of moving America's food from farm to table, this felt real. This felt like me. The radio kept me company as I drove, country music mixing with farm reports and weather updates. Corn prices were up. Rain expected Tuesday. The usual rhythm of rural life set to melody and static. But my mind kept drifting back to that diamond necklace, to those late nights, to the way Caleb's cologne had lingered in my living room last week when I'd come home early. "Just dropped off some estimates for that bathroom renovation Amelia wanted to surprise you with," she'd explained. But her hands had trembled as she straightened magazines that didn't need straightening. A bathroom renovation I'd never heard mentioned again. See, here's the thing about boundaries, and I don't just mean property lines. Every relationship has them. Invisible fences that keep things safe, that maintain trust. You don't read your spouse's diary. You don't open their mail. You don't assume the worst without evidence. These boundaries are what make love possible. Because without trust, what do you have? But sometimes, those boundaries get tested. Sometimes you start noticing footprints in places they shouldn't be. I thought about that old glass bottle my daddy and I had buried under the oak tree back in '78. I'd been just a boy then, maybe 7 or 8, helping him and Uncle Ryan mark the corners of our property. Daddy had drawn a map by hand, all official-like, even though he'd probably had a few beers in him at the time. "This here's our land, Elijah," he'd said, his massive hand covering mine as we lowered the bottle into the hole. "These lines mean something. They mean this is ours, protected, sacred. You respect other folks' boundaries, and you make damn sure they respect yours." I'd thought he was just talking about acreage then. Now, 30-some years later, I understood he'd been talking about a lot more than dirt and fence posts. The haul to Des Moines was uneventful, just how I liked it. Dropped the load, picked up another, headed back toward home as the sun started its descent toward the horizon. The fields glowed amber in that light, like the whole world had been dipped in honey. It was the kind of beautiful that made you understand why people wrote songs about this place, why they fought and died for land that looked just like this. My phone buzzed on the dashboard. Amelia. "Working late at the office. Leftovers in the fridge. Love you." I stared at that text longer than was safe while driving. It was Saturday evening. What office? What client scheduled showings this late? That splinter twisted deeper, but I texted back what I always did. "No problem. Love you too." Because that's what you do when you trust someone. You give them the benefit of the doubt. You assume the best. You respect those boundaries even when questions are scratching at the inside of your skull like trapped animals. When I finally pulled into our driveway, it was full dark. The house glowed warm and welcoming, lights in every window like eyes keeping watch. I could see Victoria at the kitchen table, homework spread out like conquered territory. Layla was probably in her room, music turned up too loud, texting boys she thought I didn't know about. This was my kingdom. Modest, maybe, but mine. Built on hard work and honest living, or at least the appearance of it. I stood there in the darkness for a moment, looking at my life from the outside. The white farmhouse that needed painting, the red barn that housed more memories than animals, the fields that rolled out in every direction, defining us, containing us, protecting us. My father had been right about money. It did change people. But he'd been wrong about one thing. Sometimes it wasn't having money that revealed character. Sometimes it was not having it, or at least thinking you didn't have it. Because if Amelia was stepping out on me, if she was crossing boundaries that shouldn't be crossed, it wasn't because I was rich. As far as she knew, I was just a truck driver trying to make ends meet. If she was betraying me, it was because of who I appeared to be, not who I really was, and somehow, that made it worse. I headed inside, ready to play the part of the tired husband home from a long day's work, ready to heat up leftovers and help with homework and pretend that Splinter wasn't working its way toward my heart, ready to maintain those boundaries even as I suspected others were crossing them in the dark. "Daddy's home," Victoria called out, and just like that, the weight lifted a little. Because whatever else was happening, whatever secrets were festering in the shadows of our life, my daughters were real. Their love was real, and for tonight, that had to be enough. But as I hugged Victoria and called up to Layla, as I went through the motions of our normal evening routine, I couldn't shake the feeling that our boundaries, all of them, were about to be tested in ways I couldn't yet imagine. The oak tree stood sentinel in the darkness beyond the kitchen window, keeper of secrets, marker of lines that should never be crossed. Somewhere beneath its roots, that glass bottle waited, patient as death, holding the truth of where things were supposed to be. I just didn't know yet how far off course we'd already drifted. Chapter 2. By spring of 2016, the splinter had become a thorn, and the thorn was working its way toward bone. I'd started noticing things a suspicious man would notice, and hating myself for noticing them. The way Amelia's phone was suddenly face down on every surface, the new password on her laptop, the credit card statements that showed charges at restaurants I'd never been to, on days she'd said she was showing houses in completely different towns. You're paranoid, I'd tell myself, staring at the ceiling at 3 in the morning while Amelia slept peacefully beside me. This is what happens when you keep secrets. You start seeing secrets everywhere. But then there was that Tuesday in April. I'd finished a run-early mechanical problem with the trailer that turned out to be nothing, but protocol demanded an inspection. Instead of hanging around the depot, I'd decided to surprise Amelia with lunch. Maybe take her to that new Italian place downtown she'd been talking about. The house was too quiet when I walked in. Not empty quiet, occupied quiet. Like when kids are doing something they shouldn't be. "Amelia!" I called out, setting my keys on the counter. The scramble of movement from the living room, quick footsteps, a door closing harder than necessary. When I rounded the corner, Amelia was standing there, hair slightly messed, cheeks flushed like she'd been running, or doing something else that raised the heart rate. "Elijah!" "You scared me," she laughed, but it came out shaky. "What are you doing home?" "Truck trouble," I said, trying to read her face. "Thought I'd steal you away for lunch." That's when I smelled it. Cologne. Not mine, I barely wore the stuff. This was something expensive, something that reminded me of leather and cedar and trying too hard. Caleb's cologne. "Is someone here?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "Caleb just dropped off some brochures," she said, gesturing to a pile of construction pamphlets on the coffee table. "For the Murphy listing. They want to know about renovation costs before they make an offer." It was perfectly reasonable. Made complete sense. Caleb was a contractor. Amelia was a real estate agent. They had legitimate business together. But the cologne was too fresh, too strong for someone who just dropped something off and left. And there was something else. Amelia's shirt was buttoned wrong. Third button in the fourth hole, creating a slight bunch in the fabric. I knew because I'd helped her with that same shirt 100 times when she was running late. I knew every button, every fold, every way that fabric fell on her body. And right now, it was telling me a story I didn't want to read. "Rain check on lunch?" she said, already moving toward the stairs. "I need to get these estimates to the Murphys before 2. "Sure," I said, watching her go. Rain check. After she left, I stood in that living room for a long time, breathing in another man's scent, trying to convince myself I was wrong. The pamphlets were right there, evidence of legitimate business. But when I picked them up, they were old dated 3 months ago. Why would Caleb drop off old brochures? That's when I made my first real mistake. Or maybe it was my first real smart decision. Depends on how you look at it. I started paying attention, not in an obvious way. I didn't turn into some crazy, jealous husband checking her phone or following her around. But I started noting things. Writing them down even, in a little notebook I kept locked in my toolbox in the garage. Tuesday, April 12th. Amelia at showing until 10 p.m. Caleb's truck at Walmart when I drove by at 8. Thursday, April 14th. Amelia's yoga class. Called studio class canceled due to instructor illness. Saturday, April 16th. Dinner charge at Cedar Rapids Grand Hotel, $127. Amelia said she was showing rural property to out-of-town clients. Each entry was like a small cut. Nothing fatal on its own, but collectively, they were bleeding me dry. The worst part was watching her lie to my face. She'd gotten good at it. Or maybe she always had been, and I was just now paying attention. The way she'd look directly into my eyes, no flinching, no tells, and spin these elaborate stories about difficult clients and extended meetings. "You wouldn't believe this couple from Chicago," she'd say, kicking off her heels after another late night. "They wanted to see every single property in their price range. Every single one. I thought I'd never get home. And I'd nod and smile and ask the right questions, all while wondering if she'd actually been looking at property or if she'd been in Caleb's bed, in his apartment above the hardware store, in the back of his pickup truck parked on some quiet country road. The images would eat at me at night. My wife, my Amelia, with him, doing things she did with me, making sounds I thought were just for us, sharing parts of herself that were supposed to be mine alone. I'd never been a jealous man before, never had reason to be. But jealousy, I learned, is like a cancer. It starts small, just a few wrong cells, but it multiplies and spreads until it's consuming everything healthy around it. "You okay, honey?" Amelia would ask, finding me staring out the kitchen window at nothing. "You seem distant lately." "Just tired," I'd lie, becoming the thing I hated. "Work's been rough." "Maybe you should cut back," she'd suggest, rubbing my shoulders with hands that might have been touching another man hours before. "We're doing okay financially. The real estate business is booming." Was it? Or was Caleb helping with the bills? The thought made me sick. Ryan noticed something was wrong before anyone else. My brother had always been able to read me like a book, even when we were kids. "You look like hell," he said one Sunday, both of us watching the girls ride their horses while Amelia was at another open house. "Thanks," I said, taking a pull from my beer. "You always know just what to say." "I'm serious, Eli. What's going on? You and Amelia having problems?" I wanted to tell him. God, I wanted to spill everything, my suspicions, my fears, the way I was slowly going crazy with doubt. But saying it out loud would make it real, and I wasn't ready for real yet. "Just the usual stuff," I said instead. "Marriage isn't always easy." Ryan studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "You know I'm here if you need me, right? Whatever it is." "I know." He hesitated, then added, "Saw something weird the other day. Caleb's truck parked out by the old Miller place. You know that abandoned farmhouse off County Road 7? My stomach twisted. "Yeah?" "Just sat there for about an hour. Thought maybe he was scouting it for renovation, but..." He shrugged. "Nobody else with him, far as I could tell. Just seemed odd. Nobody else visible, maybe. But Amelia's car could have been parked behind the farmhouse, hidden from the road. She'd been gone that same day, showing property to a young couple from Des Moines. Or so she'd said. "Probably nothing," I said, filing the information away in the mental folder that was getting thicker by the day. "Probably," Ryan agreed. But his eyes said he wasn't convinced. The thing about suspicion is that once it takes root, it colors everything. Every laugh became forced, every kiss became a question. Every "I love you" became a lie until proven otherwise. I started making excuses to come home at odd hours. Nothing dramatic, just little variations in my schedule. A forgotten wallet, a need to grab different paperwork, a sudden craving for Amelia's leftover meatloaf. She was always where she said she'd be, doing what she said she'd be doing. But there were signs. A wine glass in the sink when she didn't drink wine. The bedroom window cracked open when she always complained about drafts. Fresh vacuum lines on the carpet at 2 in the afternoon when she always cleaned in the mornings. Small things, circumstantial things, things that would sound crazy if I said them out loud. But I knew my wife. I knew her rhythms and habits and preferences the way I knew the sound of my own heartbeat. And something was off. The GPS tracker was a line I swore I'd never cross. But standing in the electronics store, holding that little device no bigger than a matchbox, I realized I'd already crossed so many lines. What was one more? I told myself it was just for peace of mind. I'd track her for a week, see that she was exactly where she said she'd be, and then I'd take it off and throw it away and get some therapy for my paranoid delusions. The first day she went to the office, showed 2 houses, had lunch at Panera, showed another house, stopped at the grocery store, came home. Everything exactly as described. The second day, more of the same. The third day, she went to Caleb's construction site after lunch, stayed for 45 minutes. When she got home, she never mentioned it. "How was your day?" I'd asked, giving her every opportunity. "Oh, you know, Same old. Showed the Hendersons that split level on Maple. They're interested, but want to sleep on it. No mention of Caleb. No mention of the construction site. Just a hole in her day where 45 minutes disappeared like they'd never existed. The fourth day, she drove to that abandoned farmhouse Ryan had mentioned. Parked behind it, just like I'd imagined. Stayed for 2 hours. When Caleb's truck pulled up 20 minutes after she arrived, I sat in my own truck 3 miles away, watching the little dot on my phone's screen, and felt something inside me break. Not my heart that would come later. This was something else. Trust, maybe. Or hope. Or whatever it is that lets you look at someone you love and not see a stranger. When she came home that evening, she was humming. Actually humming. Like she'd had the best day. Her hair was perfect, her makeup fresh, her clothes without a wrinkle. Whatever had happened in that farmhouse, she'd taken time to put herself back together afterward. "You're in a good mood," I observed, hating how normal my voice sounded. "Closed a big sale today," she announced, pulling a bottle of champagne from her purse. "The Weatherby estate, full asking price." I knew for a fact the Weatherby estate had been under contract for a week. I knew because Tom Weatherby had mentioned it at the gas station. But I smiled and popped the cork and toasted to her success, all while wondering if she was celebrating the sale or the 2 hours she'd spent with Caleb in an abandoned farmhouse. That night, she initiated intimacy for the first time in weeks, and I let her, even though her skin smelled wrong, even though her enthusiasm felt like guilt, even though I kept imagining another man's hands where mine were. Afterward, she curled into me like she used to when we were young, her head on my chest, her finger tracing patterns on my skin. "I love you, Elijah," she whispered into the darkness. "I love you too," I said, and meant it, which was the worst part of all. Because I did love her. Despite everything, despite the lies and the suspicion and the growing pile of evidence, I loved my wife. I loved the mother of my children. I loved the woman I'd built this life with. But I was starting to hate the stranger she was becoming. Or maybe the stranger she'd always been. The next morning, I found something that changed everything. I wasn't snooping, not exactly. I was looking for the tax documents our accountant needed, the ones Amelia had said she'd filed in the home office. But when I opened the filing cabinet, a manila envelope fell out from behind the folders. No label, unsealed, hidden. Inside were printed emails, from Amelia to Caleb, from Caleb to Amelia. The date on the first one was 8 months ago. 8 months. While I'd been torturing myself over recent changes, they'd been at this since last summer. "Can't wait to see you tonight. He thinks I'm at book club. The farmhouse at 7. I'll bring wine. Wear that blue dress. See, God, last night was incredible. I can't concentrate on anything today. 18 days until E's hunting trip. We'll have the whole weekend. See." I read them all, each word a nail in the coffin of my marriage. But it was the last email that really twisted the knife. "Don't worry about E. He's too trusting to ever figure it out. Besides, once we get Ryan's land, we'll have enough to start fresh. Just a little longer, baby. Ryan's land? What did my brother's property have to do with anything? The next email explained it. "Surveyor comes Thursday. If we move the post Monday night while E's on his run, nobody will notice for months. By then, adverse possession laws kick in. That strip of land will double my development potential. Our future, baby. See." They weren't just having an affair. They were planning to steal from my brother. They were using my absence, my work schedule, my trust to commit fraud. My hands shook as I put the emails back, careful to leave everything exactly as I'd found it. Then I went to the bathroom and threw up, my body rejecting the truth like poison. When I came out, Amelia was in the kitchen, making breakfast like any other morning, humming again, happy. "You okay, honey?" she asked, not looking up from the eggs she was scrambling. "You look pale." "Just something I ate," I said. "There's Pepto in the medicine cabinet," she offered, so caring, so concerned. "Want some toast? Might settle your stomach?" I watched her move around our kitchen, this woman I'd loved for 15 years, this stranger wearing my wife's face, and realized I didn't know her at all. Maybe I never had. "Actually," I said, making a decision that would change everything, "I think I'll go see Ryan, get some fresh air." That's a good idea, she said, kissing my cheek as I passed. Her lips were soft and familiar and full of lies. Tell him I said hi. I will, I said, knowing I'd be telling him a lot more than that. Outside, the Iowa wind carried the smell of coming rain and fresh-turned earth. It also carried the sound of hammering from Caleb's property next door. Building something, planning something, stealing something. I stood there for a moment, looking at my land, my brother's land, the boundaries that were supposed to mean something. My father's words echoed in my memory. You respect other folks' boundaries, and you make damn sure they respect yours. Well, Daddy, I thought, heading for my truck. They crossed the line, several lines, actually. And now it was time to make them pay for it. Chapter 3. The old oak tree had seen a lot in its 100-and-some years, but I doubt it had ever witnessed a conversation like the one Ryan and I had that morning. We stood under its branches, right where the property lines met, while I destroyed my brother's world with the truth. His face went through every emotion: confusion, disbelief, anger, and finally, a hurt so deep it made my own chest ache. Amelia? He kept saying, like if he repeated it enough, it might change to someone else's name. And Caleb? Are you sure? I pulled out my phone and showed him the photos I'd taken of the emails, watched his expression harden as he read about their plans for his land. Ryan wasn't a violent man that was more my speed, but I saw his fists clench and unclenched like he was fighting the urge to hit something. Those bastards, he whispered, then louder. Those goddamn bastards. Keep your voice down, I warned, glancing toward both our houses. They can't know we know, not yet. Ryan paced a tight circle, his boots wearing a path in the spring grass. How long have you known? About the affair? Suspected for months? Confirmed it this week? About the land grab? About an hour? He stopped pacing and stared at me. Jesus, Eli, what are you going to do? Not what, I corrected. What are we going to do? They're coming for both of us, Ryan. Your land, my family. We're in this together. He nodded slowly, the initial shock giving way to the strategic mind that had made him successful in the farming business. We need proof. Real proof, not just emails they could claim are fake. Already on it, I said, then hesitated. What I was about to reveal would change everything between us two. Ryan, there's something else I need to tell you. About me, about Dad's business. 15 minutes later, my brother was sitting on the ground, back against the oak tree, looking at me like I'd grown a second head. You own Midwest Grain Logistics, he said flatly. You're worth almost $2 billion. 1.9, but who's counting? And you've been pretending to be a truck driver for 15 years. Not pretending. I do drive trucks. I just also happen to own them. Ryan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Does Amelia know? Nobody knows. Well, except you now. He absorbed this, then asked the question I'd been dreading. Why didn't you tell me? It wasn't about not trusting you, I said quickly. Dad made me promise. He wanted me to see who people really were when they thought I had nothing. He wanted you to test people, Ryan finished. Vintage Dad. Trust nobody. Suspect everybody. It wasn't like that, wasn't it? Ryan stood, brushing dirt off his jeans. You've been testing Amelia for 15 years. Testing all of us. And look how she failed, I shot back, harsher than I intended. That shut him up. We stood there, two brothers divided by secrets and united by betrayal, while the wind played through the corn like whispered conspiracies. Finally, Ryan sighed. So what's the plan? First, we document everything. I've got cameras going up around both properties tonight, hidden ones. If they're going to move those fence posts, we'll have them on video. That's breaking and entering, destruction of property, fraud. All felonies, I agreed. But I want more than just criminal charges. I want them to lose everything. Ryan studied me. This isn't like you, Eli. You're the forgive and forget type. That was before they involved my children, I said. You should see how Amelia's been poisoning them against me. Little comments, little manipulations. Victoria barely looks at me anymore. Layla's starting to pull away. She's using our daughters as weapons, Ryan. Son of a bitch. Yeah. We spent the next hour strategizing. Ryan would play dumb, go about his business as usual. I'd maintain the facade at home, the clueless husband just trying to make ends meet. Meanwhile, we'd document everything, every meeting, every movement, every lie. We need legal help, Ryan said. Someone we can trust. Already made an appointment. Jack Morrison, Dad's old lawyer. He's still practicing, if you can believe it. Jack's got to be 75. 78. Sharp as ever, though. And more importantly, he's discreet. We agreed to meet again in 2 days, after I'd set up the surveillance and met with Jack. As we parted, Ryan grabbed my shoulder. "I'm sorry," he said. "About Amelia. I know you love her." "Loved," I corrected, though even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. You can't just turn off 15 years of feelings like a faucet. I loved who I thought she was. That afternoon, I met Jack Morrison at a diner 2 towns over, where nobody would recognize us. He looked exactly the same as when Dad had brought me to his office 20 years ago, thin, sharp-featured, with eyes that missed nothing. "Elijah Thompson," he said, shaking my hand with a grip that belied his age. "You look just like your father. Hope that's a good thing." "In most ways." He studied me over his coffee cup. "So what brings you to my booth? And don't say it's the pie, because we both know this place can't cook worth a damn." I laid it all out, the affair, the planned theft, the hidden fortune, everything. Jack listened without interrupting, occasionally making notes on a legal pad with handwriting that looked like chicken scratch, but that I knew he could read perfectly. When I finished, he set down his pen and leaned back. "Well, that's a hell of a mess. Can you help?" "Son, I've been cleaning up Thompson family messes since before you were born. Of course I can help." He pulled out another pad, this one fresh. "First things first, protect your assets. Everything in the company needs to be locked down tighter than Fort Knox. If she gets wind of your real worth during the divorce, she'll try to take half." "She can't have it." "No, she can't. Not if we do this right. The company was inherited, established before the marriage, and she's never been involved in its operations. But we need to be careful. Move too fast and she'll get suspicious. Move too slow and she might discover the truth." We spent 2 hours going over the legal strategy, asset protection, custody arrangements, criminal charges. Jack had a plan for everything. "What about the fence posts?" I asked. "If they move them, let them," Jack said, surprising me. "In fact, hope they do. With video evidence, that's felony charges for both of them. Amelia won't get custody of a dog after that, much less your daughters. But Ryan's land. We'll be fine. No court in Iowa would uphold that claim, especially with evidence of fraud. Your brother might even be able to sue for damages. Emotional distress, conspiracy to defraud, the works." As we prepared to leave, Jack put a hand on my arm. "Your father would be proud of how you're handling this." "Would he?" I feel like I'm sneaking around playing games. "You're protecting your family and your legacy. That's exactly what Frank would do." He paused. "Though he probably would have shot Caleb by now, so you're already showing more restraint." The image of my father with a shotgun, defending the family land, was so vivid I almost smiled. Almost. That evening I installed the cameras while Amelia was at her book club and the girls were at a school function. Tiny things, barely visible, with night vision and motion sensors. One covered the property line by the oak tree. Another watched the back of the house. A third monitored the driveway. All feeding to a secure cloud server that only Ryan and I could access. I also installed one inside the house, in the living room, hidden in a bookshelf. I told myself it was for security, but really, I wanted to know who came into my home when I wasn't there. Amelia came home around 10, smelling like wine and perfume that wasn't hers. She'd been at book club, all right. If book club met at Caleb Anderson's apartment. "How was the book?" I asked, not looking up from the TV. "Oh, you know, sad. Literary fiction always is." "What was it about?" The slightest pause. "A woman finding herself after divorce. The irony was so thick I could have cut it with a knife." "Sounds depressing." "It was empowering, actually," she said, heading upstairs. "I'm going to shower." I listened to the water run and wondered if she was washing off his touch, his smell, the evidence of her betrayal. Then I pulled out my phone and checked the cameras. Everything was recording perfectly. Over the next few days, I became an actor in my own life, kissing my wife goodbye each morning, knowing she'd spend the day planning my brother's robbery, coming home each evening to family dinners that felt like wakes for a marriage that wasn't quite dead yet, helping the girls with homework while their mother texted her lover in the next room. The cameras captured it all. Caleb stopping by while I was at work, staying for hours. The two of them walking the property line, pointing and planning. Late-night meetings in the yard, thinking darkness hid them. But the most damning evidence came from Amelia herself. She'd gotten careless, or maybe just confident. Started leaving her laptop open when she left the room. Started taking calls on speaker when she thought I wasn't home. Started living like a woman who'd already gotten away with it. I documented everything. Screenshots of texts, recordings of calls, photos of receipts she'd thrown away. Each piece of evidence was another brick in the wall I was building around her. Ryan played his part perfectly. He'd run into Caleb at the hardware store and mention casually that he was thinking about having the property surveyed for tax purposes. Watch Caleb's face go pale. Then Ryan would change the subject, leaving Caleb to stew in panic. "You should have seen him," Ryan told me, laughing for the first time since I'd told him the truth. "He actually dropped a box of nails, just fumbled them everywhere." "He's getting nervous." "Good. When do you think they'll make their move?" I consulted the calendar on my phone. "I've got a long haul to Nebraska next weekend, overnight run. I'd bet money that's when they do it." "You going to actually go?" "Oh, I'll leave, make a big show of it. But I'll double back, park at your place. We'll watch them do it together." Ryan grinned, and for a moment, he looked like the kid who used to help me put frogs in our sister's bed. Just like old times. Except this time, the stakes are higher than getting grounded. The week passed slowly, each day a careful dance of deception. Amelia grew more affectionate, probably out of guilt. She'd curl into me at night, run her fingers through my hair, tell me she loved me. Each gesture was a knife twist, but I endured it. "You've been so tired lately," she said Thursday night, massaging my shoulders. "This Nebraska run is going to wear you out." "It's good money," I said, playing my part. "Besides, you and the girls could use a weekend to yourselves. Girl time." "We'll miss you." "I'll miss you too," I lied, though part of it was true. I'd miss who she used to be, or who I thought she used to be. Friday morning came gray and drizzly, the kind of Iowa spring day that couldn't decide if it wanted to rain or just threaten. I made a big production of packing, checking the truck, going over my route. "Drive safe," Amelia said, kissing me goodbye. "The weather's supposed to get worse." "I'll be careful." "Promise?" I looked into her eyes, those brown eyes I'd fallen in love with all those years ago, and saw a stranger looking back. "I promise." Layla and Victoria hugged me goodbye, and I held them extra tight, wondering if they'd ever forgive me for what was about to happen to their mother. "Love you, Daddy," Victoria whispered. "Love you too, baby girl. Both of you. More than all the corn in Iowa." It was an old joke from when they were little, but it still made them smile. I drove away at 7 that morning, watching in the rear view as my family waved from the porch. Picture perfect. American dream. Built on a foundation of lies. 3 hours later, I was parked in Ryan's barn, watching the surveillance feeds on my laptop, waiting, planning, ready to catch my wife in the act of destroying everything we'd built. The rain had started in earnest by then, drumming on the barn roof like impatient fingers. Ryan sat beside me, silent, understanding that sometimes there were no words for watching your life fall apart. "They'll wait until dark," I predicted. "Probably. You okay with this?" Ryan looked at me. "Are you?" "No," I admitted. "But I'll be okay with it being over." We settled in to wait, two brothers united against a common enemy that had once been family. The shadows grew longer as the day wore on, reaching out like fingers trying to grasp something just out of reach. Change was coming with the darkness. We could feel it in the air, electric and dangerous, like the moment before lightning strikes. And we were ready for it. Chapter 4. The rain stopped just after midnight, leaving the world washed and gleaming under a crescent moon. Ryan and I sat in his truck, parked behind the old equipment shed with a clear view of the property line. We'd been waiting for 5 hours, sustained by coffee, beef jerky, and righteous anger. "Maybe they changed their minds," Ryan said, though his voice suggested he didn't believe it. "They'll come," I said. "Amelia texted me 2 hours ago saying she was going to bed early. She never goes to bed before midnight." As if on cue, 2 figures appeared at the edge of my property, moving through the shadows like guilty thoughts. Even in the darkness, I recognized Amelia's walk, that slight sway of her hips I'd once found irresistible. Now it just made me sick. Caleb was carrying something, a post hole digger from the look of it. They made their way to the fence line, right where our properties met Ryan's land. "There," Ryan whispered, pointing to the survey stake that marked the corner. "They're going for it." I already had my phone out, recording through the night vision camera I'd installed. The image was crystal clear, Amelia holding a flashlight while Caleb worked to dig out the original fence post. 20 feet, I muttered, watching them pace off the distance into Ryan's field. "They're really going for 20 feet. "That's almost half an acre," Ryan said, his voice tight with anger. "At current land prices, about $40,000 worth," I finished, "plus the development potential Caleb mentioned." We watched them work for an hour, Caleb digging, Amelia keeping watch, occasionally helping to move the old posts. They'd clearly planned this. They had quick-set concrete, new posts, even a level to make sure everything looked professional. The worst part was watching them celebrate when they finished. Caleb pulled Amelia into his arms and kissed her, right there on my brother's stolen land, under the oak tree that had watched my father teach me about boundaries and respect. I felt Ryan's hand on my arm, holding me back, though I hadn't realized I'd started to move. "Not yet," he said. "Let them think they got away with it." We waited until they were gone, then crept out to examine their handiwork. In the darkness, you might not notice anything wrong, but knowing what to look for, the evidence was clear, fresh dirt, new concrete, the subtle difference in grass color where the fence line had been moved. "Look at this," Ryan said, kneeling by one of the old post holes. "They didn't even fill it in properly. Amateur hour." "Good," I said. "Makes our job easier." We took our own photos and measurements, documenting everything. Then Ryan had an idea that made me remember why I loved my brother. "Dad's time capsule," he said suddenly. "Remember? We buried it right about—" He paced off from the oak tree, muscle memory from 40 years ago guiding him. "Here. That's inside the moved fence line now," I observed. "Exactly. And that bottle has the original property map Dad drew, dated and everything." It was perfect. Proof that couldn't be disputed, couldn't be explained away. We marked the spot with a small stone, something we could find again, but that wouldn't draw attention. The next morning, Saturday, I played the part of the long-haul trucker, calling Amelia from a truck stop in Nebraska. "How's the drive, honey?" she asked, sounding remarkably well-rested for someone who'd been up until 3 a.m. stealing land. "Long. Boring. Missing you and the girls." "We miss you, too." "Oh, Ryan stopped by earlier. Said something about his fence looking weird." "You know anything about that?" The casual delivery was impressive. If I hadn't watched her commit the crime, I might have believed her innocent concern. "Weird how?" I asked, playing dumb. "I don't know. He seemed upset. Maybe you should talk to him when you get back." "I'll do that." I hung up and looked at Ryan, who was sitting across from me at his kitchen table. "You ready for your performance?" "Born ready," he said, standing up. "Time to discover I've been robbed." Ryan outdid himself. He stormed over to my house, yelling loud enough for half the county to hear. I watched it all through the security cameras, eating popcorn like it was a movie. "Elijah's not home?" he shouted at Amelia when she answered the door. "Well, you tell him someone moved my goddamn fence. 20 feet of my land, just gone." Amelia's shock looked genuine. She'd always been a good actress, but this was Oscar-worthy. "That's terrible. Who would do such a thing?" "I don't know, but I'm calling the sheriff. And a surveyor. This is criminal." Victoria and Layla appeared behind their mother, drawn by the commotion. My heart ached seeing their confused faces. Uncle Ryan? Layla said. What's wrong? Someone stole part of my property, sweetheart. Moved the fence in the middle of the night like a thief. I saw Amelia's hand tighten on the doorframe. Now, Ryan, let's not jump to conclusions. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe nothing. I know where my land is, Amelia. My family's owned it for 60 years. Of course, I just meant. Let me call Elijah. He should know about this. She called me right after Ryan left, her voice shaking. Honey, something's happened. Ryan thinks someone moved his fence. What? That's crazy. Who would do that? I don't know, but he's really upset. He's calling the authorities. I'm heading back, I said. Be there in 3 hours. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Ryan's my brother. If someone's messing with his property, I need to be there. I heard her swallow hard. Okay, drive safe. I made it back in 2 hours, having never actually left town. When I pulled into the driveway, Amelia ran out to meet me, playing the concerned wife perfectly. This is such a mess, she said, hugging me tight. Ryan's beside himself. Let's go look, I said, taking her hand. See how bad it is. We walked to the property line, where Ryan was already waiting with a handful of neighbors who'd heard the commotion. Anna Garcia was there, shaking her head in disapproval. Tom Weatherby had brought his old surveying equipment from his contracting days. Even Pastor Maya Wilson had shown up, offering prayers and support. It's definitely been moved, Tom announced after taking some measurements. Recent, too. This concrete's maybe 12 hours old. All eyes turned to the evidence. In daylight, the tampering was obvious, the different soil color, the fresh concrete, the line where grass had been disturbed. Who would do this? Anna asked, but she was looking at Caleb, who'd just arrived, trying to look concerned and failing. Maybe we should wait for the official surveyor, Caleb suggested quickly, before we start making accusations. Nobody's making accusations, Ryan said coldly. Yet. That's when I suggested digging for the time capsule. Dad buried it in 1978, I explained to the gathered crowd. Right at the original property corner. If we find it, then we'll know exactly where the line should be, Tom finished. Amelia went pale. Surely we don't need to dig up the yard. The surveyor will... No, this is perfect, Maya said. A family artifact marking the boundary. It's like something out of the Bible. I got a shovel from the garage, noting how Amelia's hands trembled as she watched. Caleb tried to suggest we wait, but the neighbors were invested now. They wanted to see this time capsule, this piece of local history. I dug carefully, knowing exactly where to find it, but making a show of searching. Ryan guided me with distant memory, and helpful neighbors offered suggestions. After 15 minutes, my shovel hit glass. Got it! The bottle came up dirty but intact, the wax seal still holding after 40 years. Inside, rolled tight, was my father's map. Hand-drawn, dated, signed by him and the previous owner of Ryan's property as witness. The oak tree was clearly marked as the corner point. The current fence was 20 feet off. Son of a bitch, Tom said, then apologized to Pastor Maya. Someone really did move it. Adam Martinez, the county surveyor, arrived an hour later. He confirmed what we already knew: the fence had been recently relocated, the original posts dug up and moved. He documented everything with official measurements and photographs. This is a crime, he stated flatly. Theft, fraud, destruction of property. Whoever did this is looking at serious charges. Amelia excused herself, claiming she felt sick. Caleb followed a few minutes later, saying he had a construction emergency. Nobody missed the timing. That evening, with the evidence documented and the police report filed, I sat down with my daughters. They needed to hear some version of the truth, though not all of it. Not yet. Someone tried to steal from Uncle Ryan, I explained. We don't know who yet, but we're going to find out. Why would someone do that? Victoria asked, her 12-year-old faith in human goodness shaken. Sometimes people want things that aren't theirs, I said carefully, but that doesn't make it right. Layla was quiet, studying my face. At 14, she was old enough to sense the undercurrents. Is Mom okay? She seemed really upset. It's been a stressful day for everyone, I said, pulling them both close. But we're family. We'll get through this together. Later, after the girls were in bed, I found Amelia in our bedroom, packing a bag. Going somewhere? I asked from the doorway. She spun around, startled. I thought I'd stay with my sister for a few days. This whole thing has me rattled. Your sister in Chicago? Yes. The one who's been in Florida for the past month? She froze, caught in another lie. I meant, I know what you did, Amelia. The words hung between us like a blade. She sank onto the bed, the fight going out of her. I don't know what you're talking about. I have video, I said quietly. You and Caleb, last night, moving the fence. She looked up at me then, and for a moment I saw real fear in her eyes. Then, predictably, she tried another tactic. Elijah, I can explain. Don't. I turned to leave, then stopped. Ryan's pressing charges. The police will probably want to talk to you tomorrow. I'd get a lawyer if I were you. Elijah, please. The girls will be fine. They have one parent who actually puts them first. I slept in the guest room that night, listening to her cry through the walls. Part of me wanted to comfort her, the part that still remembered loving her. But that part was dying, suffocated by lies and betrayal and the image of her kissing another man on stolen land. The next morning, Sunday, should have been peaceful. Church, family lunch, lazy afternoon. Instead, it was chaos. The story had spread through Cedar Rapids like wildfire. Everyone knew about the fence, the investigation, the scandal. When we arrived at church, conversations stopped. People stared, some with sympathy for Ryan and me, others with that hungry look of people feeding on drama. Amelia didn't come. Caleb's truck was gone from his property. Pastor Maya pulled me aside after the service. How are you holding up? I've been better. And the girls? Confused, hurt, but strong. She nodded. If you need anything, counseling, support, a safe place to talk, I'm here. I might take you up on that. What I didn't tell her was that this was just the beginning. The property theft was bad enough, but I had a feeling Amelia wasn't done. Cornered animals do desperate things, and my wife had just realized she was trapped. I was right. Monday morning, while I was at the grocery store with the girls, my phone rang. County Child Protective Services. Mr. Thompson? We've received a concerning report about the welfare of your children. We need to schedule a home visit immediately. The ground shifted under my feet. Amelia had just declared war, and she was using our daughters as weapons, but she'd made a critical error. She'd assumed I was still the trusting fool she'd been deceiving. She didn't know about the cameras, the evidence, the billion-dollar empire I commanded. She didn't know that I'd been preparing for this moment from the second I'd found those emails. The battle for my family had begun, and I was ready for it. What Amelia didn't understand was that when you come for a man's children, you'd better not miss. And she was about to miss spectacularly. I looked at my daughters, innocently picking out cereal in aisle 3, and made a silent promise. I would protect them from this, from her, from all of it. The fault lines in our family had been exposed, raw and jagged like broken glass. But sometimes you have to tear something down completely before you can build it back stronger. And that's exactly what I intended to do. Chapter 5. The morning after the CPS call, I stood at my kitchen window watching a government sedan pull into my driveway. My coffee had gone cold in my hand, but I couldn't bring myself to move. This was really happening. My own wife had weaponized our children against me. Nicholas Brown stepped out of the car, a manila folder under his arm and an expression that said he'd rather be anywhere else. He was maybe 45, graying at the temples, with the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too much of humanity's dark side. I wondered what lies he'd been fed about me. Mr. Thompson? He extended his hand when I opened the door, professional, but not warm. I'm Nicholas Brown from Child Protective Services. We spoke on the phone yesterday. Come in, I said, stepping aside. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Can I get you some coffee? That'd be appreciated, actually. We sat at my kitchen table, the same table where my family had shared thousands of meals, where my daughters had done homework, where Amelia and I had planned our future. Now it felt like an interrogation room. Mr. Thompson, I need to be direct with you, Nicholas began, pulling out a notepad. We received a detailed complaint alleging physical abuse of your daughters. The caller provided specific incidents and dates. Who was the caller? I asked, though I already knew. The report was anonymous, but the person claimed to be a concerned family friend who'd witnessed troubling behavior. Family friend. The words tasted like battery acid. I thought about the security footage of Amelia coaching the girls, saved on my laptop upstairs. But I needed to play this carefully. Mr. Brown, I have never laid a hand on my daughters in anger. Never. I don't even spank them. He studied me, pen poised over paper. The report mentions belt marks, bruising, incidents where you allegedly lost your temper over minor infractions. Each word was a knife between my ribs. Amelia had been thorough in her lies. Where are these marks? When did these incidents supposedly happen? That's what we're here to determine. I'll need to speak with your daughters. Are they home? They're at school. But Mr. Brown, I leaned forward, meeting his eyes. There's something you need to know. My wife and I are having marital problems, serious ones. She's been having an affair, and we recently discovered she was involved in attempting to steal property from my brother. Nicholas's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. Are you suggesting this report might be retaliatory? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you facts. Check the police reports. Check with the county surveyor, Adam Martinez. Hell, check with the sheriff's department. They have an open investigation. He made notes, his pen scratching across the paper. Regardless of the circumstances, Mr. Thompson, I have to investigate any allegation of child abuse. You understand that? I do, and I want you to investigate. I want you to investigate thoroughly, because my daughter's safety and well-being are the most important things in my world. The front door opened, and Amelia walked in like she owned the place, which technically she still partially did. She'd timed this perfectly, of course, the concerned mother arriving just as CPS showed up. Oh my God, is this about the call? She rushed to the table, her hand flying to her chest. I can't believe someone would make such accusations. Her performance was flawless. If I didn't know better, I'd have believed her myself. Nicholas introduced himself, and Amelia immediately launched into a defense of me that was somehow worse than an accusation. Elijah's been under so much stress lately, she said, sitting down uninvited. The property dispute with his brother, work pressures, and our personal issues. But he loves our girls. He'd never hurt them intentionally. Intentionally. There it was, the poison word, planted like a seed. Mrs. Thompson, I'll need to speak with you separately as well, Nicholas said. But first, I need to interview the children. What time do they get home from school? 3:30, I answered before Amelia could. I'll pick them up myself. Actually, Amelia interjected, I should be there when... Both parents can be present initially, Nicholas cut in, but I'll need to speak with the children privately. That's standard procedure. Amelia's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. She hadn't counted on that. The next few hours crawled by like years. Nicholas inspected the house, taking photos, making notes. He examined the girls' rooms, looking for signs of distress or fear. He found nothing because there was nothing to find. My daughter's rooms were havens of teenage normalcy, Layla's walls covered in horse posters and photos with friends, Victoria's desk cluttered with art supplies and young adult novels. At 3:15, I drove to pick up the girls, Amelia insisting on coming along. We rode in silence, the air between us thick with unspoken warfare. You need to let me handle this, she finally said as we pulled into the school parking lot. Handle it? Like you handled the property line? Like you handled our marriage? She turned to face me, and for a moment, I saw real fear in her eyes. Elijah, please. Whatever you think of me, don't let it affect the girls. They need the truth, I interrupted. And that's exactly what they're going to give. Layla and Victoria climbed into the back seat, immediately sensing the tension. They'd been walking on eggshells for days, and now this. Girls, I said, turning to look at them, there's a man from Child Protective Services at the house. Someone made a report saying I've been hurting you. Victoria gasped. Layla's face went pale. But Daddy hasn't, Victoria started. I know, sweetheart. That's why we just need to tell the truth, okay? Just answer his questions honestly. I caught Amelia's reflection in the rearview mirror, saw her lips moving silently. She was mouthing words to them, trying to coach them even now. But our daughters weren't looking at her. They were looking at me. Back at the house, Nicholas interviewed each girl separately in the living room while Amelia and I waited in the kitchen. I could hear muffled voices but couldn't make out words. Amelia paced, her heels clicking on the linoleum like a countdown clock. After 20 minutes with Victoria, Nicholas emerged with a strange expression. I'd like to speak with Layla now. Victoria came into the kitchen, tears streaming down her face. She walked past Amelia and straight into my arms. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Shh, baby girl. You have nothing to be sorry for." Amelia stood up. "Victoria, sweetheart, what did you tell him?" But Victoria buried her face deeper into my chest, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Another 30 minutes passed before Nicholas called us all back into the living room. Layla was sitting on the couch, her chin raised defiantly, a crumpled piece of paper in her hand. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson," Nicholas began, his tone completely different from this morning. "Your daughters have been very brave today. They've told me the truth about what's been happening in this house." Amelia stepped forward. "If they're scared, if they didn't feel comfortable saying, Mrs. Thompson." Nicholas's voice was sharp now. Both girls independently confirmed that their father has never abused them. However, they also revealed something deeply concerning. Layla stood up, her voice shaking but determined. "Mom made us practice. She made us memorize lies about Dad." The color drained from Amelia's face. "Layla, honey, you're confused." "I'm not confused," Layla shouted, holding up the paper. "You wrote it down. You made us practice saying Dad hit us with a belt, that he threw things, that we were scared of him. You said if we didn't say it right, we'd never see our friends again." Victoria found her voice too, small but clear. "She said Daddy would go to jail if we didn't lie good enough. She made us practice in the mirror." Nicholas took the paper from Layla Amelia's handwriting, clear as day. A script for destroying me. "This is a misunderstanding," Amelia said, her voice rising. "The girls are upset about the divorce. They're—" "Mrs. Thompson, coaching children to make false abuse allegations is a serious crime. It's also child abuse in itself." The room went silent except for Victoria's quiet crying. I pulled both my daughters close, feeling them tremble against me. "Mr. Thompson," Nicholas said, "I'll be filing my report immediately. The abuse allegations against you are unfounded. However, I'll be recommending further investigation into Mrs. Thompson's conduct." Amelia's mask finally cracked completely. "You can't do this!" "Those girls need their mother. Elijah's manipulating them, can't you see that?" "What I see," Nicholas said, standing to leave, "is two brave young ladies who chose truth over fear, and a father who's clearly devoted to them." He looked at me. "You might want to contact your attorney about emergency custody orders." After Nicholas left, Amelia turned on me with pure venom in her eyes. "You think you've won? You think you can take my children?" "I didn't take anything," I said quietly. "You threw them away the moment you asked them to lie." She grabbed her purse, heading for the door. "This isn't over." "No," I agreed. "It's not. But your part in my daughters' lives? That's hanging by a thread, and you're the one who frayed it." She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the windows. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot, like an ending, like the death of whatever we'd once been. I looked down at my daughters, still clinging to me. "You did the right thing," I told them. "I'm so proud of you both." "Is Mom going to jail?" Victoria asked in a small voice. I didn't know how to answer that. The woman they'd called Mom was already gone, replaced by someone capable of using them as weapons. That person might well face jail time, but the mother they'd loved? She'd been a ghost for longer than any of us had realized. "Let's just focus on us right now," I said, kissing the top of each of their heads. "We're going to be okay." But even as I said it, I knew Amelia wasn't done. Cornered animals are dangerous, and I just watched her realize she was trapped. The property theft, the affair, and now this, the walls were closing in from every direction. That night, after the girls were asleep, I sat at my computer reviewing the security footage from the past week. What I found made my blood run cold. Amelia had been busier than I'd thought. There were late-night meetings with Caleb in our yard, packages being delivered and hidden in the garage, phone calls that lasted hours. In one recording from 3 nights ago, I could hear her clearly. If the CPS thing doesn't work, we go to Plan B. Either way, he loses everything. Plan B. What the hell was Plan B? I made copies of everything, uploaded it all to a secure cloud server, and emailed links to Jack Morrison, my lawyer. Then I walked through my house, checking windows, doors, making sure everything was locked tight. The war wasn't over. If anything, today had just escalated it. But looking in on my sleeping daughters, seeing them safe in their beds, I knew I'd won the only battle that really mattered. They'd chosen truth over lies, courage over fear, their father over their mother's manipulations. Now, I just had to make sure they never had to make that choice again. Chapter 6. 3 days after the CPS visit, I thought maybe, just maybe, we'd weathered the worst of it. I should have known better. Amelia had been too quiet, and in my experience, a quiet Amelia was a dangerous Amelia. Ryan showed up at 7 in the morning with coffee and a grim expression. "We need to talk," he said, pushing past me into the kitchen. "Good morning to you, too." Caleb's been spreading rumors. He set down his coffee hard enough to slosh over the rim. "Saying you're unstable, that you threatened him, that the whole property thing is you having some kind of breakdown." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Let him talk. We have him on video committing felony theft." "It's not just talk, Eli." Ryan pulled out his phone, showing me a Facebook post from someone named Jennifer Hawkins, a real estate agent from Amelia's office. "Look at this." The post was long, dramatic, and completely fabricated. It painted me as an abusive husband who'd driven his wife to desperation, a man who'd turned his children against their mother, who'd falsely accused an innocent neighbor of crimes. The comments were already piling up, some defending me, people who knew better. But others, "Oh my God, I always thought he seemed controlling. Poor Amelia. No wonder she was seeking comfort elsewhere. Those poor girls, caught in the middle." "This is character assassination," I said, handing back the phone. "It's more than that. Look at the last paragraph." I read it again, more carefully this time. Hidden among the sympathy-seeking was something darker. Concerned friends are documenting everything for the safety of those innocent children. Sometimes the system fails, and communities have to step up. "That sounds like a threat," I said. "That's because it is one." Before I could respond, my phone rang. Anna Garcia, our elderly neighbor. "Elijah, dear, I thought you should know there's a van parked across from your house. Been there for 2 hours. Nobody's gotten out." I moved to the window, peering through the blinds. Sure enough, a white van with tinted windows sat across the street. No company logos, no visible license plate from this angle. "Anna, do me a favor. Write down the license plate number, but don't approach them." "Already did, dear. And I called my nephew at the sheriff's department. Told him we might have burglars casing the neighborhood. God bless paranoid elderly neighbors." Ryan was already on his feet. "I'll go out there." "No." I grabbed his arm. "That's what they want. Confrontation. Probably recording, hoping I'll lose my temper." "So what do we do?" "We give them something to record." I called Pastor Sarah Wilson, a force of nature in her mid-50s who'd been counseling families in Cedar Rapids for 20 years. She'd already heard about the CPS visit through the church grapevine and was firmly in my corner. "Sarah, I need a favor. Can you come by and bring some of the church ladies?" She didn't even ask why. "Give me 15 minutes. While we waited, I coached the girls. They were scared strange van, hushed conversations, the tension thick enough to cut. "Listen," I told them. "Some people are trying to make me look bad. So we're going to show them exactly who we really are. When Pastor Wilson gets here, we're going to have a normal morning. Homework at the table, breakfast, just a regular family. Can you do that?" Layla, ever the protective older sister, squared her shoulders. "We can do normal. That's my girl." Sarah arrived with reinforcements. Anna Garcia, Tom Weatherby's wife Margaret, and 3 other church ladies armed with casseroles and righteous indignation. They descended on my house like a loving invasion. "Oh, Elijah," Sarah said loudly, very clearly performing for whoever was watching. We just wanted to check on you and the girls. Such a trying time, but the whole congregation is behind you." They bustled in, filling my kitchen with warmth and the smell of homemade food. Within minutes, it looked like a church social. The girls were being fussed over, homework was being checked, and normal, wholesome family life was on full display. Margaret, bless her, went outside to water my plants with a pitcher, giving her a clear view of the van's license plate. She came back in with a satisfied smile and a nod to me. After an hour of this performance, the van left, but I knew it would be back. This was just reconnaissance. That afternoon, while the girls were at school, I met with Jack Morrison again. His office smelled like old leather and older bourbon, though it was barely noon. "They're building a case," he said, spreading papers across his desk. "Not a legal one, they know they'd lose that. A court of public opinion case." "For what purpose?" "Best guess. Force you to drop the criminal charges. Maybe leverage for better divorce terms. Or—" He paused, considering. "They're planning something bigger and need you discredited first." "Plan B," I muttered. "What?" "Something Amelia said on a recording. If CPS didn't work, they'd go to Plan B." Jack's expression darkened. "We need to get ahead of this. Time to play offense instead of defense." "What do you suggest?" "Full transparency. We release everything, the videos, the emails, the CPS report exonerating you. All of it." "When?" "Soon, but not yet. Let them overplay their hand first. The more lies they spread, the more damaging the truth will be when it comes out." Over the next week, the harassment escalated. Anonymous calls to my employer claiming I was drunk on the job. Someone spray-painted "abuser" on my truck one night, though I'd expected that and had cameras rolling. Caught Caleb's nephew Marcus red-handed. That footage went straight to the sheriff. The girls were suffering. Victoria had started having nightmares. Layla was getting into arguments at school, defending me against rumors. The poison was spreading. But we weren't alone. The community was splitting, but our side was strong. Sarah organized prayer circles that were really strategy meetings. Anna Garcia turned into a one-woman surveillance network. Tom Weatherby and other neighbors started doing drive-bys, keeping an eye on things. Then came the escalation I'd been dreading. It was a Thursday night. The girls were asleep. I was reviewing contracts for Midwest Grain Logistics when I heard it breaking glass from the garage. I grabbed the baseball bat I'd started keeping by my bed and crept downstairs. The garage door was open, overhead light on. My truck's windshield was shattered, but that wasn't what made my blood run cold. Photos were scattered across the hood. Photos of my daughters, at school, at the store, riding their horses. Recent photos. Someone had been following them, watching them. A note was tucked under the wiper. "Drop the charges or the next pictures won't be so innocent." I called 911 immediately, then Ryan, then Jack. Within minutes, my driveway was full of sheriff's cars. Deputy Mitchell, who'd gone to high school with me, looked sick when he saw the photos. "This is witness intimidation," he said. "Threat against minors. This just became federal. Can you trace who took them?" "We'll try. But Elijah." He lowered his voice. "You might want to consider getting the girls somewhere safe for a while." I'd been thinking the same thing. But where? And how could I protect them if they weren't with me? The answer came from an unexpected source. Nicholas Brown from CPS showed up the next morning, this time as an ally. "Mr. Thompson, I've been monitoring the situation," he said, sitting at that same kitchen table where this had all started. "What's happening to your family is unconscionable. Can CPS do anything? Officially? Not much. Unofficially?" He slid a business card across the table. "My sister runs a therapeutic ranch in Minnesota. Does work with at-risk youth, but also protective situations. Your girls could stay there for a few weeks. Continue their schoolwork remotely, be safe, have counseling support if needed." I studied the card. "Why would you do this?" "Because I've seen what happens when the system fails good parents. And because your daughters—" He paused. "In 20 years of this job, I've rarely seen kids show that kind of courage. They deserve protection." That night, I sat down with Layla and Victoria to discuss the plan. They were scared but trying to be brave, and it broke my heart. "It's just for a little while," I explained, "until we get through the festival and the legal stuff is sorted." What about school? Victoria asked. You'll do it online. Think of it as an adventure. Horses, wide open spaces like summer camp but in fall. Layla saw through the cheerful spin. They threatened us, didn't they? The photos. No point lying to her. Yes. Is Mom involved? That was harder to answer. I don't know for sure, but probably. Victoria started crying. Why does she hate us? She doesn't hate you, sweetheart. She's just lost. Sometimes adults make terrible choices when they're desperate. Will we have to see her again? Layla asked. Not until you're ready. Maybe not ever, if that's what you decide. We left at dawn, before anyone would be watching. Ryan drove them in his truck while I took a decoy route in mine, making sure I was followed. The van was back, plus a sedan I recognized as belonging to one of Caleb's workers. Let them follow me. The girls were already gone, safe, protected. Now I could focus on ending this once and for all. When I got home that afternoon, the house felt empty in a way it never had before. But I wasn't alone. Sarah was there with Anna, Margaret, and half the congregation, turning my house into a command center. The festival's in 5 days, Sarah said, spreading out plans on the table. Are you sure about this? I'm sure. It could get ugly. I thought about those photos of my daughters, about the threats, about 15 years of lies. It already is ugly. Time to drag it into the light. Tom Weatherby leaned in. We've got your back, Elijah. Whatever happens. Looking around at these people, my real family, my chosen family, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not for reconciliation, not for going back to how things were, but for justice, for truth, for a future where my daughters could come home without fear. Then let's get ready, I said. Time to show them what happens when you threaten the wrong family. The war was entering its final phase. In 5 days at the Harvest Festival, everything would come to a head. Amelia and Caleb thought they'd broken me, isolated me, defeated me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Chapter 7. The morning after my daughters left for Minnesota, I woke to an empty house and a full war room. Sarah Wilson had apparently let herself in at dawn and transformed my kitchen into a command center that would have made a general proud. Coffee's on, she said without looking up from her laptop. Anna's bringing breakfast. We've got work to do. Maps of the festival grounds were spread across my table, marked with notes in different colored pens. Security positions, stage location, optimal spots for recording equipment. It looked like we were planning an invasion. In a way, we were. Ryan arrived with a box of documents and a grim smile. The private investigator came through. You're going to want to see this. He spread out bank records, loan documents, text message transcripts. The paper trail was damning. Caleb had taken out 3 separate loans against the future development of acquired property. My brother's land he thought he was stealing. Amelia had been receiving payments from Caleb's construction company for consulting services going back 8 months. She was planning this before the affair even started, I said, studying the dates. Or the affair was part of the plan, Ryan suggested. Get close to you through Caleb, position herself for the land grab, have an exit strategy with her new man and a pile of money. The thought that our entire recent history might have been calculated manipulation made me sick. But it also made me angry. The right kind of angry cold, focused, productive. We need to get this to the sheriff, Sarah said. Already copied and delivered, Ryan replied. They're building a case for fraud charges on top of everything else. Anna Garcia burst through the door with enough breakfast casseroles to feed an army and fresh intelligence. That Jennifer Hawkins, the one spreading lies on Facebook? Her real estate license is under review. Seems someone reported her for ethics violations. She winked at me. Wasn't me, of course, but Margaret's cousin works at the state board. This was how it worked in small towns. Hurt one of us, face all of us. Tom Weatherby arrived next with technical equipment cameras, recording devices, a laptop with editing software. My son does wedding videography, he explained. He's lending us his setup. We're going to document everything. Over the next 3 days, our coalition grew. The Menendez family, who ran the local grocery, offered to cater our section of the festival for free. The high school principal, Dr. Patricia Hughes, publicly stated her support after seeing the CPS report. Even old Judge Coleman, technically retired but still influential, made a point of stopping by to shake my hand at the coffee shop where everyone could see. But the most surprising ally came on Wednesday afternoon. I was in the barn, checking the surveillance footage when a car pulled up. A woman got out mid-40s, professional dress, nervous energy. It took me a moment to recognize her. Linda Morrison, Caleb's ex-wife. "Mr. Thompson, I'm sorry to bother you, but we need to talk." I invited her in, wary but curious. She sat at my kitchen table, the same spot where so many revelations had unfolded. "I heard what's happening," she began. "What Caleb and your wife are doing. I need to tell you some things." "I'm listening." She pulled out a thick folder. "When Caleb and I divorced 5 years ago, it wasn't just about his cheating. He was involved in a land scheme then, too. Tried to force an elderly couple off their property, forged documents. I have all the records." "Why didn't this come out in court?" "I was scared. He threatened me. Said he'd make sure I never saw our son again. So I took the settlement and stayed quiet. But when I heard he was doing it again, targeting you and your family..." She pushed the folder toward me. "I can't stay silent anymore." The documents were damning. Previous fraud attempts, forged signatures, a pattern of behavior that would establish clear criminal intent. This wasn't Caleb's first rodeo, just the first time he'd been caught. "Would you testify to this?" I asked. "If it means stopping him?" "Yes. He's already poisoned my son against me. I've got nothing left to lose." After Linda left, I called Jack Morrison. "We just got a gift wrapped in a bow," I told him. "How big a gift?" "Pattern of criminal behavior, prior fraud attempts, documented threats. Caleb's ex-wife is willing to testify." I could hear Jack smile through the phone. "That changes everything. This isn't just property theft anymore. This is organized crime, RICO territory." "Can we use it at the festival?" "Oh, we're going to use everything at the festival." That night, I video-called my daughters in Minnesota. They looked better, still scared, but the ranch was doing them good. Horses have a way of healing hearts that humans can't reach. "How are my brave girls?" "Good, Daddy," Victoria said. "I rode a horse named Thunder today. He was huge." Layla was quieter, more serious. "When can we come home?" "Soon, baby. After the festival. After we finish this." "Are you going to be safe?" I wanted to lie, to tell her everything would be fine. But she deserved better. "I'm going to be careful, and I've got a lot of people watching my back." "Mom called the ranch," Layla said suddenly. "They didn't let her talk to us, but she called." My blood chilled. How had she found them? What did she say? "The director told us she was crying, begging to talk to us, said she was sorry, that she loved us." "How do you feel about that?" Victoria answered first. "Sad, but also mad. If she loved us, why did she make us lie?" "People can love you and still hurt you," I said carefully. "Her love might be real, but her actions were wrong. You don't have to forgive her just because she says sorry." "I don't want to forgive her," Layla said firmly. "Not yet. Maybe not ever." "That's okay too." After we hung up, I sat in my empty house, thinking about forgiveness and justice and the fine line between revenge and righteousness. Was I doing this for my daughters or for myself? Did it matter, as long as they were protected? Thursday brought final preparations. The festival committee, most of whom were on my side, arranged for extra security. The sheriff's department would have a visible presence. The stage would be set up with a professional sound system and projection screen, ostensibly for the usual harvest celebration slideshows, but perfect for displaying evidence. Caleb and Amelia had been laying low, probably planning their own ambush. But sources told us they'd reserved a vendor booth at the festival, planning to present themselves as normal community members. The audacity was breathtaking. "They think they've won," Ryan observed. "Think you're broken, isolated, defeated." "Good," I said. "Let them think that." Sarah pulled me aside that evening. "Are you prepared for what this will do? Once you reveal everything publicly, there's no going back. Your family's private pain becomes public record." "It already is," I pointed out. "They made it public with their lies. I'm just correcting the record with a nuclear bomb. Sometimes that's what it takes to end a war. She studied me with those wise eyes that had seen too many broken families. Just remember, after the bomb drops, you still have to live in the fallout. Your daughters especially. That's why they're in Minnesota, safe from the explosion. Geography doesn't protect from emotional shrapnel, Elijah. She was right, of course. But we were past the point of clean solutions. This was triage, now save what you can, cut away what's killing you, and hope you don't bleed out in the process. Friday morning, the day before the festival, I did a final check of all our preparations, evidence compiled and backed up in multiple locations, video testimony from Linda Morrison recorded and ready, security footage edited into a compelling narrative, financial documents organized and verified. Jack Morrison arrived with a briefcase and a stern expression. Last chance to back out. We could handle this privately, through the courts. They threatened my daughters, Jack, published photos of them, made them lie to CPS. This went beyond private the moment they involved my children. He nodded slowly. Then God help them, because the law's about to. That afternoon, I drove through Cedar Rapids, seeing the festival preparations. Banners going up, vendors setting up booths, the stage being assembled in what would soon be ground zero for the truth bomb I was about to drop. I stopped at the cemetery where my father was buried, sat by his headstone for a while, talking to him about boundaries and betrayal and the price of justice. I tried to do it your way, Dad, I said to the cold granite. Tested her with poverty, looking for true love. But maybe the test was rigged from the start. Maybe you can't test something that was never real. The wind through the oaks sounded like an answer, though I couldn't make out the words. As the sun set on the eve of the festival, I stood in my kitchen with my assembled army. Ryan, Sarah, Anna, Tom, Margaret, Linda Morrison, even Nicholas Brown had come to show support. We raised glasses of apple cider seemed appropriate for a harvest celebration. Tomorrow, everything changes, I said. Win or lose, after tomorrow, nothing will be the same. I want to thank you all for standing with me, for believing in truth over comfortable lies. To truth, Sarah said, raising her glass. To justice, Ryan added. To family, Anna said, looking around the room. The kind you choose. We drank, and for a moment, in that kitchen full of people who'd become my real family, I felt something I hadn't felt since this all began. Peace. Not the peace of resolution that would come tomorrow, maybe, but the peace of knowing you're not alone, that whatever storms come, you've got people who'll stand in them with you. Tomorrow would bring the reckoning. Amelia and Caleb would face the consequences of their choices in front of the entire community. The truth would out, as truth always does, eventually. But tonight, surrounded by chosen family in my empty but full house, I was already home. Chapter 8. October in Iowa couldn't have been more perfect if I'd ordered it from a catalog. Crisp air that smelled like apple cider and possibility, the kind of blue sky that made you believe in fresh starts. The Harvest Festival was in full swing by the time I arrived at noon, and for a moment, standing at the entrance, I could almost pretend this was just another year, another celebration. Almost. Ryan met me at the gate, dressed in his best jeans and the shirt his wife would have picked out for him if she were still alive. You ready for this? As ready as anyone can be for deliberately destroying their life in public. You're not destroying it, he corrected. You're cauterizing the wound. The festival sprawled across the town square and adjoining park, with vendor booths forming colorful corridors of commerce and community, the smell of grilled corn and funnel cakes mixed with hay and autumn leaves. Children's laughter echoed from the carnival rides. It was Americana at its finest, and I was about to detonate a bomb in the middle of it. I spotted Amelia first. She was at a booth near the stage, playing the part of a successful real estate agent, handing out flyers with her picture on them. She'd dressed carefully professional but approachable, nothing too expensive that might remind people of her recent crimes. Caleb lurked nearby, pretending to examine tomatoes at the farmer's market while keeping watch. They hadn't seen me yet. Good. Tom Weatherby appeared at my elbow with a small earpiece. We're all connected, he explained. Sarah's at the sound booth, Anna's watching the north entrance, Margaret's got eyes on the sheriff's position. I fitted the earpiece, immediately hearing Sarah's calm voice. Testing, testing. Elijah, if you can hear me, scratch your nose. I did, and heard her chuckle. Perfect. We're set. Your presentation is queued up and ready. The plan was simple. I'd take the stage at 2 o'clock for what was advertised as a special announcement from Midwest Grain Logistics. The whole town was curious. It wasn't every day a billion-dollar company made announcements at local festivals. For the next hour, I walked the festival, greeting neighbors, buying raffle tickets, playing the part of a normal citizen. But I could feel the undercurrent of tension. People knew something was coming. The way conversations hushed when I passed, the significant looks, the careful distance some maintained while others made a point of shaking my hand. Judge Coleman stopped me near the pie contest. Heard you've got something interesting planned for your speech. Just some community announcements, Judge. He smiled, the kind of smile that had preceded many harsh sentences in his courtroom. Good. This community needs some truth-telling. At 1:45, I made my way toward the stage. That's when Amelia intercepted me, grabbing my arm with perfectly manicured nails that dug in like claws. What are you planning? She hissed, smile still plastered on for appearances. Just a speech about community values. Supporting local business. You know, honest work for honest people. Her grip tightened. Elijah, please. Whatever you're thinking, don't. We can work this out privately. Like you worked out stealing my brother's land privately? Like you privately coached our daughters to lie about abuse? That's not I was trying to protect them. From what? From me? The only danger they've ever faced in this family came from you. Caleb appeared beside her, trying to look casual but ready for violence. I could see it in his stance, the way his hand hovered near his pocket. Problem here? He asked. No problem, I said loudly enough for others to hear. Just discussing family business with my soon-to-be ex-wife and her boyfriend. People turned to stare. Caleb's face reddened. Watch yourself, Thompson. That's good advice, I agreed. You should take it, both of you. Watch yourselves very carefully for the next 20 minutes. I pulled free from Amelia's grip and walked to the stage. Sheriff Davidson was already there, badge prominent, hand resting casually on his service weapon. 2 deputies flanked the stage stairs. Mr. Thompson, the sheriff nodded. Nice day for truth-telling. The best, I agreed. Sarah's voice crackled in my ear. Showtime. You've got this. I climbed the stairs, each step feeling like a mile. The microphone waited like a loaded gun. The crowd was gathering, drawn by curiosity and the invisible magnetism of impending drama. Good afternoon, Cedar Rapids, I began, my voice carrying clear across the square. Thank you all for being here for our annual Harvest Festival. Polite applause. I could see Amelia and Caleb pushing through the crowd, trying to get closer to the stage. Let them come. As many of you know, there have been some difficulties in my family recently. Rumors, accusations, legal disputes. I think it's time you all knew the truth. The crowd grew quiet. Someone turned off the carousel music. Even the kids seemed to sense something momentous was happening. First, I need to confess something. For 15 years, I've been lying to all of you. I'm not just a truck driver for Midwest Grain Logistics. I paused, letting the tension build. I own it, all of it. The entire company. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I saw Amelia's face go white as printer paper. I inherited it from my father, but chose to live modestly, to work alongside my employees, to be part of this community as an equal, not as someone set apart by wealth. I wanted to know that the relationships in my life were real, based on who I am, not what I have. On the projection screen behind me, Sarah brought up the company documentation, the net worth statements, the proof of my ownership. Unfortunately, I continued, that test revealed some painful truths. My wife, Amelia Thompson, has been having an affair with our neighbor, Caleb Anderson. The crowd erupted in whispers. Amelia started pushing harder toward the stage, but the deputies intercepted her. But that's not the worst part, I said, raising my voice over the noise. Together, they conspired to steal land from my brother Ryan Johnson, and I have proof. The screen changed to show the nighttime surveillance footage. Crystal clear images of Amelia and Caleb moving fence posts, stealing land under cover of darkness. The crowd's whispers turned to angry muttering. "That's not me!" Amelia screamed. "It's fake! It's doctored!" "Then how do you explain this?" I asked as Sarah played the audio of Amelia coaching our daughters to lie about abuse. Her voice, clear as day, instructing our children to falsely accuse me. The crowd's anger turned to horror. Parents pulled their children closer. Some people started crying. "But wait," I said, my voice hardening. "There's more." Linda Morrison's testimony played on the screen, describing Caleb's previous fraud attempts, his pattern of criminal behavior. Then came the financial documents, the loans taken against stolen property, the payments to Amelia for her participation. Caleb broke free from the crowd, charging toward the stage. "You son of a bitch! You ruined everything!" Sheriff Davidson stepped forward, hand on his weapon. "Mr. Anderson, stop right there! This is all lies!" Caleb shouted. "He's setting us up!" "Actually," the sheriff said, pulling out handcuffs, "Mr. Anderson, you're under arrest for property theft, fraud, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent." As deputies cuffed Caleb, Amelia fell to her knees in front of the stage, sobbing theatrically. "Elijah, please! I love you. I made mistakes, but I love you." I looked down at her, this stranger wearing my wife's face. "No, Amelia. You loved what you thought you could take from me. There's a difference." Sheriff Davidson approached her next. "Mrs. Thompson, you're also under arrest, filing false CPS reports, conspiracy to commit fraud, child endangerment." As they led her away, she screamed, "What about our daughters? They need their mother." "Our daughters," I said into the microphone, my voice carrying across the silent square, "are safe. They're protected from you, and they'll remain that way." The crowd stood in stunned silence as the police cars pulled away with Amelia and Caleb. Then, slowly, applause started. First from Anna Garcia, then Tom Weatherby, then spreading through the crowd like wildfire. But I wasn't done. "I know this has been shocking," I said as the applause died down, "and I'm sorry for bringing this drama to our celebration, but I wanted you all to know the truth, and I wanted to announce something else." The screen changed to show architectural plans. Midwest Grain Logistics is donating $10 million to establish the Thompson Boundaries Community Center and Educational Farm. It will sit on the land that was at the center of this dispute, plus additional acreage I'm purchasing. It will be a place where children can learn about agriculture, families can gather, and our community can grow stronger. The applause was deafening now. People were crying, hugging, celebrating the victory of truth over deception. "The center will be overseen by a board of community members," I continued, "including Pastor Sarah Wilson, Anna Garcia, Tom Weatherby, and my brother Ryan, because I've learned something important through all of this." I paused, looking out at the faces of my real family, the community that had stood by me. Family isn't just about blood or marriage certificates. It's about the people who stand with you when everything falls apart. It's about truth, loyalty, and the boundaries we maintain not to keep people out, but to protect what matters most. Sarah's voice crackled in my ear. "Beautiful. Bring it home." "So thank you, Cedar Rapids. Thank you for being my family when I needed one most. And I promise you, the Thompson Boundaries Center will stand as a monument to the values that make this community great: honesty, justice, and unconditional love for our children." I stepped away from the microphone to thunderous applause. People surged toward the stage, not in anger, but in support. Hands reached up to shake mine. Voices called out encouragement. Ryan jumped on stage and pulled me into a bear hug. "Dad would be proud," he said into my ear. "I hope so," I replied. Sarah Wilson took the microphone, leading the crowd in a prayer of healing and thanksgiving. As heads bowed, I looked across the festival grounds at the corn maze where my daughters had played, at the field stretching toward the horizon, at the oak tree standing sentinel over it all. The war was over. Truth had won. And while my family would never be the same, maybe that was okay. Maybe it would be better, honest, real, built on solid ground instead of shifting sand. My phone buzzed with a text from the ranch in Minnesota, a photo of Layla and Victoria on horseback, smiling genuinely for the first time in months. The message read, We watched the live stream. We're proud of you, Daddy. When can we come home? Soon, I texted back. Very soon. The sun was starting to set over the festival, painting everything gold. People were beginning to dance to the band that had started playing. Life was moving forward, as it always does. I stood on that stage, surrounded by my chosen family, watching my community celebrate not just the harvest, but justice itself. And for the first time in a very long time, I felt something I'd almost forgotten existed: hope. The old life was dead, burned away in the fire of truth. But from those ashes, something new was already growing, something better, something real, and it was beautiful. Chapter 9. The courtroom smelled like old wood and disappointment. 3 weeks after the Harvest Festival, I sat in the gallery watching my wife of 15 years stand before a judge in an orange jumpsuit that washed out her complexion. The woman who used to spend an hour getting ready for church now had her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, no makeup. The truth of her finally visible to everyone. Mrs. Thompson, Judge Harrison said, peering over his glasses with the weight of 30 years on the bench behind his words. You have pled guilty to filing a false report with Child Protective Services, conspiracy to commit property fraud, and child endangerment through coercion. Do you understand these charges? Yes, Your Honor. Amelia's voice was barely a whisper. Gone was the confident real estate agent who could sell ice to Eskimos. This was just a broken woman facing the consequences of her choices. The prosecutor, a sharp young woman named Jennifer Reeves, stood up. Your Honor, the state recommends 15 years, given the severity of the crimes and the trauma inflicted on minor children. 15 years. The number hung in the air like smoke from a distant fire. Victoria, sitting beside me, grabbed my hand. Layla, on my other side, stared straight ahead, her jaw set in that way that reminded me so much of my father. When it came time for victim impact statements, I stood slowly, my prepared speech suddenly feeling inadequate. But I had to say something, for my daughters, for the record. Your Honor, I began, walking to the podium. I loved this woman for 15 years, trusted her with everything: my home, my children, my heart. She took that trust and weaponized it. She didn't just betray me, she betrayed our daughters by asking them to lie about abuse that never happened. She tried to steal from my brother. She conspired to destroy our family for money and another man. I paused, looking back at Amelia. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I forgive her as a human being, I continued, because holding on to hate is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. But forgiveness doesn't mean escaping consequences. My daughters deserve justice. My brother deserves justice. This community deserves to know that we don't tolerate this kind of betrayal. The judge nodded, making notes. When I sat back down, Victoria was crying silently. I put my arm around her, pulling her close. Amelia's lawyer, a public defender who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, made a half-hearted plea for leniency, citing stress and temporary insanity. Nobody bought it. When Judge Harrison delivered the sentence 15 years with possibility of parole in 10, Amelia finally broke down. Real tears this time, not the manipulative kind she'd perfected over the years. As they led her away, she looked back at our daughters one last time. Victoria turned her face into my shoulder. Layla never blinked. Caleb's sentencing came the next day. 10 years for property theft and conspiracy, his contractor's license revoked permanently. He took it with more dignity than Amelia, which wasn't saying much. Just hung his head and shuffled out in chains, his dreams of development money disappearing like morning mist. The divorce was almost anticlimactic after that. Amelia didn't contest anything, how could she? From a prison cell with no leverage, she signed whatever papers Jack Morrison put in front of her. Full custody to me, no visitation rights while incarcerated. The house, the land, everything stayed with me and the girls. The only thing she kept was her maiden name, which she took back like she was erasing 15 years of marriage with a pen stroke. It's like she never existed, Layla said that night over dinner, staring at the empty chair where her mother used to sit. She existed, I corrected gently. She gave me you too. That's the only good thing to come from those years, but it's enough, more than enough. The community reaction was something else entirely. Cedar Rapids isn't a big town, everybody knows everybody's business eventually. But having it all laid out public like that, with arrests and trials and newspaper coverage, well, that was something else. Most folks were supportive. Pastor Sarah Wilson organized meal trains so I didn't have to worry about cooking while dealing with lawyers and court dates. Ana Garcia turned into a one-woman PR firm, shutting down gossip and rumors with the fierce protectiveness of a grandmother bear. "Anyone says one word against Elijah or those girls," I heard her tell the ladies at the grocery store, "they'll answer to me." But there were others who fed on the drama like vultures on roadkill. Jennifer Hawkins, Amelia's former colleague who'd spread those lies on Facebook, had to leave town after her real estate license got revoked. Turns out the state board doesn't look kindly on agents involved in property fraud, even peripherally. Some of Amelia's friends came by to apologize, awkward visits where they stood on my porch like they were afraid to come in. "We had no idea," Diane Matthews said, clutching her purse like a life preserver. "She seemed so normal." "Monsters usually do," I replied, not unkindly but not letting them off the hook either. That's how they get away with it for so long. The hardest part was the emotional aftermath. Justice had been served, papers signed, criminals jailed, but trauma doesn't end with a judge's gavel. Victoria started having nightmares, waking up screaming that someone was trying to take her away. Layla retreated into herself, spending hours with the horses, finding more comfort in their silent company than human conversation. I wasn't doing much better. I'd sit on the porch after they went to bed, staring out at the fields, wondering how I'd missed it. How had I lived with a stranger for 15 years? What did it say about me that I'd been so blind? "Stop it," Ryan said one night, joining me with a beer. "I can hear you thinking from my house." How did I not see it? Because you're a good man who believes the best about people. That's not a weakness, Eli. That's what makes you different from her. Fat lot of good it did me. Really? He gestured toward the house where my daughters slept. You've got two amazing girls who chose truth over lies, who stood up to their own mother to protect you. You've got a whole town ready to support you. You've got your freedom and your integrity. I'd say your goodness did you plenty of good. He was right, of course. Ryan usually was. But knowing something in your head and feeling it in your heart are two different things. I started going to therapy. Dr. Patricia Coleman, a soft-spoken woman who didn't let me get away with easy answers. "You keep saying you should have seen it," she observed during our third session. "But what if you couldn't have? What if she was that good at deception? Then what does that say about our entire marriage? Maybe it says that you're capable of real love, even when the other person isn't. That's not shameful, Elijah. That's human." Slowly, day by day, we started rebuilding. Not our old life that was gone forever, but something new, something honest. I threw myself into work, not the truck driving, but the real work of running Midwest Grain Logistics. Came clean to all my employees about who I really was. Most were shocked. Big Mike nearly fell off his chair. "You mean all those times you complained about the boss?" He started. "I was complaining about myself," I admitted. After the initial surprise, though, they respected it. Here was an owner who actually knew what it was like to drive 18 hours straight, to deal with broken equipment and tight deadlines. It changed the whole dynamic of the company for the better. But the best thing to come from the darkness was the idea for Thompson Boundaries Farm. It came to me one morning while watching Victoria paint by the oak tree. She was turning something painful into something beautiful, and I thought, why can't we all do that? What if we made this place into something good? I asked the girls over breakfast. A farm where kids can learn, families can gather, where boundaries mean protection, not division. Layla looked up from her cereal, interest flickering in her eyes for the first time in weeks. Like a teaching farm? Exactly, with gardens and animals and programs for schools. "Can we have more horses?" Victoria asked hopefully. "We can have whatever we want," I said. "It's our land, our choice, our future." The planning gave us purpose, something to focus on besides the trial and the divorce and the empty chair at dinner. Ryan jumped in with both feet, Ana Garcia organized volunteers, and even Nicholas Brown, the CPS officer who'd become an unexpected ally, offered to help with programming for at-risk youth. By Christmas, we had plans drawn up, permits filed, and funding secured through Midwest Grain Logistics. $10 million to turn our pain into purpose. "It's too much," Sarah Wilson said when I told her. "It's not enough," I countered. "But it's a start." As the year ended and a new one beckoned, I stood in my kitchen, our kitchen now, just the girls and me making hot chocolate while snow fell outside. The divorce was final. The criminals were in prison. The farm was becoming reality. We'd survived. More than that, we were starting to thrive. "Dad?" Victoria said, coming up beside me. "Are you happy?" I thought about it, really thought about it. Was I happy? My wife had betrayed me, tried to destroy me, used our children as weapons. I'd lost the life I thought I had. But I'd gained something too. Truth, clarity, a deeper bond with my daughters, a community that had my back, a purpose beyond myself. "I'm getting there, sweetheart," I said, handing her a mug with extra marshmallows, just how she liked it. Day by day, I'm getting there. And that was enough. For now, that was enough. Chapter 10. The rooster we'd named Constantine, Victoria's idea, don't ask, crowed at exactly 5:47 a.m., same as every morning for the past year. But now, in late 2019, that sound meant something different. It wasn't just the start of another day. It was the anthem of our new life. I rolled out of bed and pulled on my work boots, different ones now, newer, without the weight of deception staining the leather. Through my window, Thompson Boundaries Farm stretched out in the early morning mist, rows of learning gardens where kids would soon be planting fall vegetables, the red barn converted into an education center, and there by the property line, the old oak tree standing guard over it all. "Morning, Dad," Layla called from the kitchen, already dressed in jeans and the Thompson Boundaries Farm t-shirt we'd had made. At 16 now, she'd grown into herself, confident and strong. The girl who'd stood up to her mother's lies had become a young woman who knew her own worth. "You're up early," I said, pouring coffee from the pot she'd already made. "Wanted to check on Buttercup before the kids arrive. She's been off her feed." That was Layla Mother Hen to every animal on the property. We'd expanded from 2 horses to 6, plus goats, chickens, and a pig named Hamilton that Victoria insisted was essential for the full farm experience. "Morning, family." Victoria bounced into the kitchen, 13 and full of artistic energy that seemed to vibrate off her in waves. She'd painted a mural on the barn last month, a sunrise over cornfields with the words, "New Beginnings," worked into the clouds. It was beautiful and heartbreaking and perfect. "The Riverside Elementary class will be here at 9, I reminded them. "Layla, you're leading the horse safety demo. Victoria, you've got art in the garden." "On it," they said in unison, then laughed at themselves. This was our routine now. 3 days a week, school groups came to learn about farming, sustainability, and respect for the land, for animals, for each other. The other days were open to the public, families coming to pick vegetables, pet animals, and remember what community meant. After breakfast, we headed out to prepare for the day. The morning sun painted everything gold, and I couldn't help but remember another morning, years ago, when I'd stood in this same spot believing I had the perfect life. The difference was that perfection had been a lie. This, the controlled chaos, the hard work, the honest messiness of it, this was real. "Mr. Thompson," a voice called from the parking area. Sophia Chen walked toward us, carrying boxes of art supplies. She'd started volunteering 6 months ago, teaching weekend art classes. A widow herself, she understood loss and rebuilding in ways that didn't need explaining. "Told you to call me Elijah," I said, taking a box from her. "And I told you I would when you stopped calling me Miss Chen," she replied with a smile that did something to my chest I hadn't felt in a long time. Layla and Victoria exchanged looks that weren't nearly as subtle as they thought. "We'll just go check on the animals," Layla said, dragging her sister away. "Subtle as a brick, those two," Sophia laughed. "They mean well. They love you, want to see you happy." "I am happy." She studied me with dark eyes that seemed to see everything. Content, maybe. Functioning, definitely. But happy? That's different. Before I could respond, cars started arriving. Parents dropping off kids, volunteers showing up for the day, the controlled chaos that had become our new normal. Ryan showed up with his new girlfriend, Maria. A nurse from the hospital who didn't take any of his nonsense and somehow made him better for it. Anna Garcia arrived with a trunk full of baked goods for the lunch sale. Even Nicholas Brown came by with his own kids, having become a regular fixture in our extended family. "Look at this place," Nicholas said, surveying the farm. "From crime scene to community center, hell of a transformation." "Just trying to make something good from something bad," I said. "You did more than that. You gave this town something to believe in again." The Riverside Elementary kids arrived in a yellow bus that wheezed to a stop like an old man sitting down. 24 third graders spilled out, all energy and noise and wonder. Layla took half to the horse paddock while Victoria led the others to the garden. I watched my daughters work, saw how they connected with these kids, patient and kind and genuinely excited to share what they knew. They'd turned their pain into purpose, just like we'd turned this land from a battlefield into a sanctuary. "They're amazing," Sophia said, appearing beside me with 2 cups of coffee. "They saved me," I admitted. "When everything fell apart, they chose truth, gave me something to fight for." "Maybe you saved each other." The day flowed like honey, sweet and slow and golden. Kids learned to plant seeds, feed chickens, brush horses. Parents who came to pick them up stayed to look around, many signing up for weekend programs. The farm was becoming what I'd envisioned, a place where boundaries meant safety, not separation. As afternoon melted into evening, the regular volunteers started the familiar dance of closing up. Animals fed and secured, tools cleaned and stored, gardens watered. It was hard work, satisfying work, honest work. "Dad, look!" Victoria called from near the oak tree. I walked over to find her and Layla standing by a freshly dug hole. "We thought it was time," Layla said, holding up a metal box. "A new time capsule for the next generation." Inside were photos from the farm's first year, a USB drive with videos of school visits, Victoria's first painting from after the divorce, Layla's essay about choosing truth over family lies, and a letter I'd written to whoever might find this someday. "What did you write?" Victoria asked. "The truth," I said, "about boundaries and betrayal and building something better from the broken pieces." We lowered the box into the hole together, 3 sets of hands on the metal, sealing away our story for future finders. As we covered it with dirt, Pastor Sarah Wilson's voice carried across the farm. "Elijah, you've got visitors!" My stomach clenched even now. Unexpected visitors made me nervous. But walking toward us weren't threats or lawyers or angry relatives. It was Tom and Margaret Weatherby with their grandkids, the Menendez family with grocery bags full of food, Dr. Patricia Coleman with her husband, and what looked like half the town. "What's all this?" I asked. "Harvest celebration," Sarah announced. "First annual Thompson Boundaries Farm Community Dinner. Surprise!" Tables appeared from truck beds, grills fired up, and suddenly our farm was alive with the sound of community. Real community, not the fake smile variety Amelia had perfected, but the messy, complicated, beautiful kind that shows up when you need them. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange that Victoria would probably try to recreate tomorrow, I found myself standing by the oak tree with Ryan. "Dad would be proud," he said. "You think? You took his test to the extreme, found out your wife was false gold, and instead of becoming bitter, you became better. Yeah, he'd be proud." Sophia appeared at my elbow with a plate of food. "You should eat, and maybe dance. Maria's got music going." "I don't dance," I said. "You didn't used to do a lot of things," she pointed out. "Maybe it's time to try something new." She was right. God help me, she was right. As the stars came out and the party continued, I watched my daughters laughing with friends, saw my chosen family filling the space where betrayal once lived, felt the solid ground beneath my feet that no one could move without my permission. The old life was dead and buried, sealed in court documents and prison sentences. But this new life, it was growing wild and free and honest, like prairie grass after a fire. "Come on, Dad," Victoria called, pulling me toward the makeshift dance floor. "Just one dance." And surrounded by people who'd stood by us through the worst, on land that had been fought for and won, under stars that didn't care about our human dramas, I danced. Badly, awkwardly, but genuinely. Later, after everyone had gone home and the girls were asleep, I sat on the porch with Constantine the rooster inexplicably perched on the railing beside me. The farm was quiet except for the usual night sounds: crickets, wind through corn, the distant bark of a dog. I thought about boundaries then, about the lines we draw to protect ourselves and the ones we cross for love, about trust given and trust betrayed, about second chances and new beginnings and the family you choose versus the family you're born into. A year ago, I'd stood on a stage and destroyed my life in public. Tonight, I danced badly in the same spot and felt more alive than I had in years. The sunrise would come tomorrow, as it always did. Constantine would crow at 5:47, precise as a Swiss watch. The girls would stumble down for breakfast. The farm would fill with visitors. Life would continue its messy, imperfect march forward. But tonight, in the quiet darkness with a rooster for company and the stars for witnesses, I finally understood something. The boundaries that matter most aren't the ones drawn on maps or marked by fence posts. They're the ones we draw around our hearts, not to keep love out, but to make sure that when we let it in, it's the real thing. And that truth, hard-won and blood-bought, was worth every single broken piece it took to find it: the end. What strikes me most about Elijah's story isn't the hidden billions or even the affair, it's how he tested his wife with false poverty for 15 years, then felt betrayed when she failed that test she never knew she was taking. While Amelia's actions were undeniably criminal and cruel, I can't help but wonder if a marriage built on such a fundamental deception was doomed from the start. The real heroes here are those daughters who chose truth over blood, showing more integrity than either parent initially demonstrated.